Halo 2 had one of the biggest releases in gaming history, with tons of content and hype leading up to its release, with a movie trailer, a full-on demo, and this weird website called I Love Bees. Now, why is this website so important to Halo 2 history? Well, it's actually for a lot of reasons. To learn more about this weird mystery, let's get into the mystery of the infamous I Love Bees campaign from Halo 2.
Beer being poured on us. Murphy's in a home because of it, just babbling like a cicada.
That's awful.
ARG, Alternate Reality Game. This is the concept where a storyline is told using the real world as a basis, and also influences real people to participate in an ongoing narrative that is always subject to change. Players get involved in this ARG through a variety of means, like emails, phone calls, the internet, or even tons of public events. The most famous of these is probably the Dark Knight ARG, where there was including an army of people just like the Joker that participated in the event, or even the Cloverfield ARG, which perfectly hyped up that movie using a complex ARG of its own. This premise is what the I Love Bees was to Halo 2, as it was a massively successful ARG from back in the day. It's usually not really mentioned in the Halo history books, but with that being said, how was this ARG made and how did it even get started? Well, the I Love Bees ARG was created by 42 Entertainment, a pretty famous company who has made some of the popular ARGs. Remember the army of Jokers walking around, which yes, that actually happened. They also made that ARG as well.
I thought my jokes were bad.
The company was founded by Jordan Weissman, who was actually the former head of the Xbox division at Microsoft. The company started out by making the first successful ARG for the company, The Beast, for the film AI from Steven Spielberg. After the success of this ARG, a new form of exciting marketing was starting to really appear in the industry and prove as a viable option. In the midst of the development of Halo 2, Microsoft actually approached 42 Entertainment about the possibility of having an ARG for the Halo 2 release in order to promote the game and hype it up. So the whole ARG was greenlit. When making the ARG, the CEO Weissman said that the goal was basically to use every person, every electronic resource available to tell the story, with Weissman adding, "If we could make your toaster print something, we would. Anything with electrical current running through it, a single story, a single gaming experience with no boundaries, a game that is life itself." In the actual design of the ARG, it was convened as a radio drama with multiple continuing stories that players would have to band together to get the number of Axons to activate more of the story and narrative. The creative director of marketing for Microsoft described the unfolding ARG in audio log similar to the War of the Worlds, which was basically a radio drama from back in the day. This ARG also included many voice actors and writers on the project, and soon the development of the ARG was majorly underway. But when did the ARG actually start? And what did bees have to do with Halo? Well, like the beekeepers, who are basically the people that are trying to piece together this mysterious Halo mystery in the lead up to Halo 2, let's strap on and go back to the early 2000s internet to see where it all began.
Hurt. Oh, no! Mama's little boy.
Randomly in the hot summer of 2004, in the lead up to Halo 2's release, unrelated bottles of honey were shipped to various people, many who were already in the early ARG community. In particular, one that was shipped to Steve Peters, who was the founder of the ARG net. He was one of the first who started to put the puzzle together. The honey bottles shipped at first seemed like cut little bottles in the shape of a bear, and all really at first seemed like they were just simple honey jars, but not all as well as seemed. For one, the label branded as Margaret's Honey was missing, and the website for the honey jars and the bottles themselves were also missing as well. Inside the bottles were actually letters floating around. When put together, they actually made up I Love Bees, which in turn led to the website of the same name. Now, when you go to the website, at first it seems like a normal website from the early 2000s, but I did want to mention that the internet just wasn't as common as it is today, with a lot of people struggling just to get broadband access. But also this resulted as a turn for the internet to be sort of a wild wild west of sorts, with tons of random websites popping up ranging from shopping to forums or really just about anything. So early websites like promoting stuff like this were nothing out of the ordinary. When you go to the website, you find out that the owner of it actually was ran by a lady named Margaret, mainly in name only. But this boring bee site was actually nothing out of the ordinary that people would soon discover. People would soon realize that something was just simply not right about this website, as pages on the site would just have random strings of text all over them, distorted and corrupted images that really should not be there just started to show up, and multiple random countdown timers started to appear all over the site. Something was clearly not adding up. To report and possibly fix these issues, at the bottom of the site was a link to a blog by a person called Dana. Dana was the actual one running the site for her Aunt Margaret. On the blog, it was basically used for Dana's updates for the site. Also in regards to the recent issues, players flocked to the blog where comments were enabled. Dana, in desperation in the recent news of the website being buggy, reached out for help on the site and the blog itself. Many players actually responded in the comments on the blog, giving actual advice to fix the site, even though some not even knowing that this was actually an ARG. Players who looked at the source code for the site noticed some usual things, like common words like honey and bees, which were obviously there, but other strange ones like SOS and infestation were also put in there, words that were definitely out of place for a site like this. And eventually all these mysterious clues got many forums like Unifix and ARG.net and more discussing what this whole website actually really was and the whole mystery behind it, with it at the time having really nothing to do with Halo at this point, with many people on these forums just discussing what the site actually was. This wasn't really until on July 16, 2004, the film iRobot came out, which was bringing a major milestone and clue to this whole thing. Before the showing of the film, a theatrical trailer for Halo 2 would be shown. This was huge as this was one of the first major appearances for the game ever since the 2003 demo. It played a pretty cool trailer featuring Chief fighting the Covenant on Earth, but more importantly, near the end of the trailer, the Xbox logo and the URL appeared at the end. And just then, the URL for a half second flashed into the ilovebees.com URL, and then reverted back to the original URL showcased in the trailer. This very single small moment exploded the ARG into the public curiosity, officially connecting the website to Halo 2 somehow, and really sparking the huge boom and mystery of this ARG. At the time, only rumors of this idea flooded forums, talking about Halo and the whole connection to this ARG, as the trailer had not been released online yet at this point, as this trailer was only showcased in the movie theater chain Wiles Theaters for the movie iRobot. Wild speculation started when a random person commented on Dana's blog that they actually saw the URL in a Halo 2 trailer. Many elements at this time did not connect it to Halo 2 originally, with many ARGs not even knowing about Halo when they talked about the connection to the site. Many elements at the time did not connect the whole ARG to Halo originally, with many ARGs not even knowing about the game series initially, but eventually when the comment on Dana's blog mentioning the fact that the URL showed up in a Halo trailer, many actually took it upon themselves to actually see if this was actually true. One person in particular who was trying to solve the ARG from one of the forum sites went to a screening for iRobot, and then he saw the trailer did indeed have the URL briefly changed to the I Love Bees URL. This created wild speculation in the man's head, and as soon as he got home he reported the news on the forums, and this was only further confirmed when the trailer was released online. For the first time in this giant mystery, Halo players and the OG ARG players were interacting, visiting the site, and more trying to solve how this beekeeper site was even connected to Halo in the first place. Traffic surged on the site with at max 500,000 players involved in ARG daily, with other forums like Dana's blog and Unifiction as well having daily visitors. Soon more clues would come out, with the site having more mysterious texts appear on pages and weird corrupted images appear more frequently. Many of these corrupted images, when you put them into Notepad, players were actually able to find secret letters and phrases. Also sometimes in strings of text from the site, hidden URLs also on the page would also find hinting at a larger story as well. And this will be a constant daily thing on the site, with hidden phrases being found in corrupted images, new URLs found in the strings of text, and eventually audio logs popping up on the site, only adding to the larger story and mystery. These audio logs were actually random pieces of conversations that later would add up to the whole larger narrative of the story. And from this new info, players also found that the site actually been hijacked by an AI living in the server for the site by the name of Melissa or the operator. But even more intriguing, there seemed to be more AI on the site itself, with a character called the Sleeping Princess, who would later be revealed as a fragment of Melissa's mind, as the AI got fragmented at some point. There was also the Spider, who was a program tasked with restoring Melissa's fragmented AI mind, and finally the device's Flea, who later would become called the Seeker at some point, which was really a Trojan virus. All these characters would add to the mystery as certain AI took over certain pages on the site, like the princess taking over the email page for the site. Also, multiple countdown timers appeared, with one major one for July 27th. Many assumed that maybe these timers would actually show additional content for Halo 2, or even a chance to play the game early, which somewhat did turn out not to be the case, but also somewhat did. Which to the former did not happen, but the latter it eventually did. On this particular day, the site was once again updated with blurry photos of a woman who would be later revealed as Dana, with pictures being taken from a webcam illegally, with strings of text on the images with violent threats against Dana. In response, Dana naturally announced on her blog though she's basically going to be taking an indefinite break from the website, and also that she's going to be going on her planned trip to China, which she did mention in the past. Later revealed revealed the reason for these images and threats was because Dana was attempting to reformat and fix the site with all of its issues, but this whole process would actually be damaging to the AI, and as a response it retaliated. Players during the thick of this did not really know what to make of this, but soon the site would become even more chaotic. Players got email from the Hotmail email on the contact page, which was being controlled by the Sleeping Princess. The Sleeping Princess was basically a fragment of Melissa, which was more childlike and had a fondness for data, and persuaded players to reach out to her to make her work on the site and come back. And soon after tons of people actually sent hundreds of real emails to Dana, eventually she announced her return on her blog that she was going to be coming back to manage the site. Now after this event, I want to backtrack a bit. I did mention that the site actually had multiple countdown timers, one for the previous July 27th date, but there was also another counting down for August 10th, which with this timer it actually said something pretty interesting. It mentioned the phrase, "Once done, the medium will materialize," which means to spread. And soon the date of this timer was eventually reached and finished, and soon the site was updated with all new corrupted images and files with hidden messages, new strings of text, and new interactions with the AI. These included a monologue from Melissa and the spider program. Interactions between the spider and the Sleeping Princess indicate that the spider was hunting the piece's fly and trying to destroy it for some reason, with the princess describing it as a game of hide and go seek. Many players at this point were starting to figure out the multiple AI personalities and some parts of the ongoing story. Another major update came on the date of August 10th, with a huge list of numbers were listed on the website. These initially looked like GPS coordinates with certain times as well that matched up with the certain locations around the United States. There was exactly 210 of them put onto the site, with another timer counting down to August 24th on the site with the phrases "Axon go hot" mentioned in that timer. Now it was assumed on that day that there would need to be people at all of these 210 locations to do something. Now what that was actually unclear. In the lead up to that date, in a monologue sent by the Sleeping Princess, it basically tells the story of a recovered fragment from Melissa mentioning that she was an AI aboard a spaceship in war, but not much else hinting towards Halo. When the date of the 24th came around, tons of players hit the 210 locations just to show how massive and invested people were into this ARG at that time. But soon the site was updated with another transmitting screen alongside new coordinates and keywords for the players to use to activate these Axons, so to speak. Now, some of the issues that came with these players hitting these locations was the fact that it was very unclear what to do. I mean, people would get to these locations and sometimes a phone would ring, but people would be unsure what to say and really what to do. But soon after many trial and error, players soon got it and slowly one by one started to activate these locations, or Axons, so to speak. Now most of these Axon encounters would be usually the players would follow the coordinates and eventually in this location find a payphone, which I know at this time we all have to remember this was 2004, 20 years ago. Payphones were very common. The players would actually have to find the phone at the allotted time and eventually the phone would ring and players would ask who was it and then a voice would answer for their name. The players would then use a keyword from the site to answer correctly, and if done correctly, the site would then update with new audio logs and also new coordinates to activate further Axons. And soon after this process would be keep repeating with updates and Axon activations. It was soon revealed that a total of 777 Axons would soon need to be activated to the site, which just the sheer number of that is just insane. It shows the scale of this ARG and how massive and wide it was. As progress on activating the Axons continued, more and more audio and info would come out reviewing more of the story that followed multiple characters and even in different time periods. People invested in this ARG all over the US were in search for these Axons to activate, and sometimes to activate them they had to do and say unique things, like some of these funny scenarios.
Soldier, what kind of special skills will you offer my crew?
I play guitar
Where is your guitar?
in the trunk of my car.
Put the phone down and go get your guitar.
You like jazz?
Another cool fact I wanted to mention is usually when the players went to these Axons to activate them, the phone calls and the person that answered these phones weren't actually automated, they're actually voices by real actors, which is honestly pretty cool. The ARG gathered so much media attention, it actually had local news talk about it, with many funny stories coming from it. And one infamous moment from this ARG, and just to give a little context to this clip so to speak, in the beginning, a guy no joke during a hurricane in 2004 in Florida went to a payphone to activate an Axon, and to much shock the phone actually did ring and the operator did answer, but at some point the operator broke character to say, "Dude, it's a hurricane, put the phone down." It's all just insane, just shows how dedicated people were to this ARG. Meanwhile, the site would continue to be updated regularly with new images, hidden strings of info, and new interactions with the AI, alongside with new Axon coordinates, with even some going as far as the UK, so to speak. Now, where was Dana in the middle of all this? Well, Dana in the middle of all this mess would actually be continuing to thank the community for their help and kind of be a guide to new people getting into the ARG. And finally, by September of 2004, all 777 Axons were activated, just to show how insane of a feat this was and how it was crazy it actually got accomplished. After this, the site was updated with it saying critical threshold complete, Axon rendezvous coming, and shortly after, it was the announcement of 4 combat training exercises with coordinates were announced, all happening in 4 major cities, where players were finally getting what they wanted. The beekeepers, or the people that are basically interacting in this ARG, came to this event and actually got the chance to play Halo 2 early in a special theater. Beekeepers were even given special I Love Bees discs containing all the audio logs with the full story nicely put into chronological order. On a quick side note, these DVDs are actually very valuable Halo collectibles, actually can go for thousands of dollars online, so just kind of a weird thing I wanted to mention. Also, during these combat training exercises, the players also actually had a chance to meet some of the voice actors and staff at 42 Entertainment that made all this possible. And this overall was just a huge celebration for the community, for the OG ARG players alongside all the new Halo players that came along for the ride, with many special chances to finally allow other fellow beekeepers to meet in real life and also form special bonds and relationships. And just to meet this further demand for the ARG, an additional 27 locations were also added as well for these special events. And with that, the I Love Bees ARG was actually officially finished. Now, what was the actual story of this ARG that was mentioned in the audio logs? Well, let's finally get into that part.
Living out our lives as honey slaves to the white man!
The story of the ARG begins in the year 2537, 15 years prior to the events of Halo Combat Evolved. A child by the name of Yasmin was abducted by some agents in her childhood home and replaced by a child clone of her. This child was actually taken for augmentation in the second class of trainees for the secret Spartan 2 program, and after 8 years of Spartan training, Yasmin starts the augmentation process, but her body ultimately rejects it as a result and she dies. Soon after this, after the Spartan 2 failure, looking to salvage something from the mess, Yasmin's brain is actually remained intact and is actually used to create an AI called Melissa. After this, the AI is actually assigned to the UNSC Apocalypto, with Melissa encrypting a Covenant message detailing some kind of attack. During this, an AI from the Covenant called the Seeker intercepts it and actually attacks Melissa. Melissa tries to warn the captain of some kind of attack that's imminent, but a mysterious foreigner object flies near the ship. The crew on board actually get the object on the ship, and Melissa actually convinces one crew member on board to interact with the object. Now, during all these events, actually the ship is in slip space, but due to the interaction with the object, all this causes the ship to basically slip out of slip space, and also fragments Melissa into multiple pieces, and sends the fragmented pieces back 500 years to the past 2004, where the fragmented AI lands on a server for the I Love Bees website. This gives context to all the strange events that happen on the I Love Bees website. Now let's get into the actual fragmented pieces of Melissa that actually feature on the website. The first of these is a fragmented piece called the Sleeping Princess, which is basically more childlike. The main explanation behind this is actually she can remember some things about this past, mainly the fact that Yasmin's past as a child is represented here, which explains some kind of child banter and the personality from this AI fragment. The next one is the Operator, which is basically a militaristic AI that can lash out violently sometimes. The next one is the Spider, which is basically a protocol that tries to put the fragments back together for the AI. There's also the Seeker, which is basically the pilot's fleet that wants to attack the AI at even one point convinces the Operator to kill the Spider temporarily, thinking that actually it was the virus all along. The Seeker also tries to repair Melissa, but also slowly reprogram her as well. The princess is suspicious of the Speaker, or the Flea she calls it, and eventually gets locked up by the Operator and the Seeker. But she sometimes gets out, explains some of the monologues from her on the site explaining all the issues. Now, while all of these AI characters are happening in 2004, another fragment of Melissa actually remained in the future in the year 2552, now in the computer of Jersey Malaya. Man, I love those Northern Yankee names. Now, Jersey actually discovers the presence of this AI and actually eventually calls it Dursa, and wants to use the AI to spy on a girl that he likes by the name of Jane, who herself actually has a history of her own, like returning a past with her friends by stealing a warthog on a military base and other criminal activities, eventually getting arrested by the military police with her father finding out and legit burning down the whole police station just to get rid of some blood evidence tying to her. Man, father of the year right there. Jane also in this time period saves a guy at a bar from a mobster. While all this is going on, the AI Durba, who at this whole time has been spying on Jane, also attempts to spy on another character called Kamal, who is a medical student. Kamal gets set up on a date with a woman called Sophia, but it's actually revealed that Sophia actually has a boyfriend by the name of Aiden. But the relationship is toxic and her man doesn't really treat her right, who at this point Aiden is also apparently a gangster. This whole idea by Sophia, to her at least, is just basically just a get back at her boyfriend, who she suspects that he's actually cheating. Kamal actually offers to hack into Aiden's stuff, and would you know it, Aiden turns out is actually cheating as well. After this, they do some kind of humiliation to Aiden, but him and Sophia ended up still together and patching things up, which I guess backfired pretty badly for Kamal, who probably was expecting to get Sophia as his girl at the end of this. Ouch, gotta burn, man.
That's a big Hellnah. No.
Kamal was worried that Aiden might do something to him, but instead actually gives him a job offer. Man, what a crazy thing. Durga in the meantime actually hacks into Oni, yes, that Oni, and finds out this man called Colonel Herzog, kind of a crazy name, basically may have known about a lot of the Covenant attacks have been happening to planets prior, but actually just been letting them happen. Meanwhile, a new Oni recruit by the name of Raimi tries to uncover what is going on as well, but an assassination attempt is actually made on her, but she survives it. And it's clear to her and also others around her that Oni does not want this whole thing to be revealed and this secret to be kept hidden. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, it's Oni, basically the CIA of the Halo universe. Now, after this, it's kind of revealed that Herzog may not be a bad guy after all and may be involved in some kind of scheme, but sooner or later is actually killed before we really find out the true reason behind all of this in some kind of hacked car crash. Yes, hacked car crash. Like, what is this, some kind of watchdog shit? And after all of this, Raimi is clearly feeling betrayed by Oni. Shortly after this, it's revealed that Durga has some kind of connection to their other fragmented AI cells in the past in 2004. In the past, the operator gets some audio logs from Durga, but does not really know what to make of them and just stores them away. The princess sees this and takes them to the Seeker to use as leverage. In return, this teaches the Seeker a bit more about human emotion, and during all of this, in 2004, players are running around the payphones activating Axons and coordinates. It seems during the calls, the operator is trying to keep the princess locked up, but the beekeepers are able to free her from time to time. Also, some of the AI that's getting some of these audio logs also explains why they're also getting released by the activation of these Axons in the past, so kind of a cool correlation in the story there. Meanwhile, in the future, Sophia and Kamal are friends at this time. Damn, Kamal is stuck in the friend zone.
No.
Kamal actually opens up to Sophia that actually had a named Yasmin who died at a young age due to a metabolic cascade failure. Make a note of this for the future. But this particular event is actually what made Kamala become a doctor in the first place. After this, Durga is still spying on Jane for Jersey and finds out her father was actually a part of the Orion Project, the so-called Original Spartan Project, the program that tested out augmentations on humans to make them Spartans, but not as invasive as the program for the Spartan 2s were. Jane's father also seems to have passed down genetic abilities from his time there to his daughter Jane. Jane also meets her mother, who is also a part of the Orion Project as well, but has a ton of mental side effects from it. And it's also revealed in Jane's backstory that her father attempted to move Jane around in fear of Oni May trying to kidnap her for the Spartan 2 program. After this, we switch back to Kamala, who soon Kamala and Aiden actually soon have a better working relationship after the whole ordeal with the cheating and Sophia thing was actually done and said. Aiden even suggests the idea of cloning pop stars and making money for them. Not a bad idea, I guess you can say, to be honest with you. Kamala doesn't like the idea though, but agrees to work on it and finds out that more clones die from a thing called metabolic cascade failure. Clues? After this, Jane gets kidnapped by a mobster guy from earlier in the story, but she gets rescued by her father, who ends up getting shot at the end of it. Meanwhile, back in 2004, the sleeping princess finds out the operator is hiding info about the old man dude, Herzog. But thanks to the Seeker is reprogrammed to hide the info, but since the Seeker was also taught new things like empathy, thanks to the princess, the Seeker attempts to get the operator to share this info about Herzog back to the future, the Durga, which was also established that they can also some kind of add contact to the future AI as well in this story. Meanwhile, back in the future, Aiden gets arrested, Sophia gets her visa revoked, and Kamala alone for some while suspects that someone is spying on him, and thinks whoever it is may know what happened to his sister. Meanwhile, Jersey actually finally decides to get rid of some of that stalker behavior he was doing earlier with the AI, and finally get some balls and talk to Jane. In a kind of nice bonding moment about Jane talking about the death of her father. Jersey, using this info he got from Durga, teams up with Jane's Spartan mother and attacks the same mobsters that killed killed her father and defeats them. After this, Jersey then talks to Durga again and soon realizes he's actually talking to Kamal's sister in a way in an AI. But Durga still tells Jersey and is adamant that she's still her own person and not Yasmin, but just has some of her memories. She also says that she's been getting into these dream-like states lately where she feels like a child and worried that she's essentially losing her mind and going into maybe rampancy. Something that is super cool that's brought up early in the Halo universe before even Halo 4 brought it to the mainstream. Durga in fear wants Jersey to shut her down in case she becomes rampant, but Jersey of course says no. Later on, Kamal finally tracks down the person that's been spying on him and tracks down Jersey and Durga. Durga tells him the truth that she's actually an AI taken from the mind of his dead sister and worries that she might go into rampancy, which Kamal promises he won't let happen. It's kind of his way of saving the sister that he never could. Meanwhile, Jane tries to join the UNSC but gets rejected, and eventually Durga gathers Jersey, Jane, Kamal, and even Raimi joins as well to break into a military base to turn off the mysterious Forerunner artifact from the very beginning of the story that caused all this mess to begin with. Back in 2004, the operator gets fused with the dying sleeping princess thanks to the Seeker killing her on the I Love Bees website after a confrontation. The Seeker plans on destroying Melissa, and this whole plan of his kind of backfires, and Melissa the AI slowly starts to regain herself completely. Eventually, all the fragments of the AI, including the slowly rebuilding Melissa, realize all along that the Seeker was trying to destroy her, reactivates the Spider program, and destroys the Seeker once and for all. And to activate this final push to destroy the Seeker, all 777 Axons in real life would have to be activated by beekeepers, with the final few players having to do special things like having certain objects or having a number of people at the payphone to do certain things, which in 2004 I know must have been strange as hell just to see. But eventually, after all of this, all the fragments of Melissa back in 2004 reunite in the future, finally allowing Melissa to come back as a complete AI again, with even Yasmin also appearing as well. Melissa back in the future thanks the group for all their efforts, and eventually leaves the base thanks to Durga, who is still there as a separate entity, blowing a hole out of the base with the Scorpion tank, which is honestly a sick scene. Wish we got to see it animated. All of the group escape the base except Rami, who gets captured by security. Later on, it was actually discovered that the Forerunner artifact from the beginning would actually be kind of similar to the Ark in Halo 3, as it might have actually had the power to activate all of the Halo rings in the universe. Damn, kinda cool. And after this, the story basically wraps up, with Durga fusing into Melissa, making her more complete again, Kamal and Sophia dating, and Jane with other Spartan ones and their children basically form kind of a space pirate group, so to speak, just going throughout the universe. Really just giving a lot of Treasure Planet vibes. And meanwhile, Jersey is at home talking with Melissa. They kind of talk about the Seeker and what its motivations actually were in terms of destroying Melissa. Melissa mentions that the Seeker's purpose was probably to reveal the Forerunner artifact to the Covenant, which in turn would basically use it for their own purposes. But shortly after this, air raid sirens start to go off, as basically it's confirmed that the Covenant had indeed found Earth. Back in 2004, the Spider program, who was the only remaining program in the site, decided to set up a countdown timer for the future 2557. They basically sit there on the site and wait for the date so it can be reunited with Melissa, as the program itself had no time travel capabilities. Fun fact, if you actually go to the ilovebees.co website, if you go to the original website ilovebees.com, which is actually not around anymore, if you actually go to this website, you can actually see a real timer counting down to the 2557 date, as the Spider program is waiting for the future to reunite with Melissa. There's honestly just an amazing feature of storytelling that's still there. But in a final send-off, before leaving the site, Melissa left a message basically thanking all the players and giving info about the 4 events that will be held in Celebration that we all know, basically the Beekeepers getting their hands on Halo 2 early. And well, finally the story ends with the Covenant attacking Earth, tying the ARG's events to the events of Halo 2.
What's that?
Italian Vogue.
Mamma mia.
Overall, that was the original story of the I Love Bees ARG. Honestly, with many real life elements here and the other stories included, I think the story is honestly pretty good, with many cool story elements being put in. I mean, sure, at points it doesn't feel like a typical Halo story, but as you get further, more recognizable elements like Forerunner artifacts and also Scorpion takes start to take key roles in the plot, making it more familiar to Halo. I think that the narrative for this ARG is actually pretty good, but sure, at one point it does feel pretty convoluted as there's so many characters and different timelines. And also, while all of this is happening, there is also people in real life involved making the chess pieces on the chessboard to continue the ongoing narrative happening as well. ARGs in their nature tell more complex and even janky narratives just due to the whole real life elements influencing or basically being influenced by. But I think once you get past the more complex nature of this type of storytelling, there's actually a good story being told here. The story of this fragmented AI being stuck on a beekeeping site of all things, trying to return to her time, is honestly a pretty cool idea, and how it's done through various characters in the future and players at the present at the time 2004 is a really intriguing storytelling concept. And how the narrative was told in all these audio logs and these Axons actually remind me of the ones from Halo 3 ODST with that side story. I think that the audio logs for this ARG are actually all really well done, with a lot of good voice actors doing great performances, really making the story more compelling and making it for a good listen. I highly recommend it. And if you want to listen to the full ARG, it's luckily on YouTube, full in chronological order, and once again, like I said, I highly recommend it. I also found that the characters in the future and all of their character arcs are also pretty enjoyable as well, my only gripe being that I wish there was more development in some of the characters and more inclusion in the story. Also, the other ARG elements were also very well done, all the way from the random jars of honey sent from the beginning to all the dedication people gave to activating all of the Axons across the United States, as you can see in these collection of photos from people doing the ARG, just to show all the love and all the special moments that were created during this special time in the ARG, which honestly is just a beautiful thing to see. And overall, to sum things up, I thought that the I Love Bees ARG was honestly a really cool and forgotten part of Halo 2 history, with a very cool complex story with many different characters and timelines, and also just a real life elements as well. But this poses a question: what happened to the ARG after the main story was wrapped up? Well,
You snap out of it!
You snap out of it! Hold it!
Why, come on, it's my turn.
after the completion of the story in the I Love Bees ARG, which culminated in the special events where players got to play Halo 2 early, and with Halo 2 finally releasing shortly after, November 2004, it officially bookended the entire saga, so to speak. In the aftermath of the ARG, the I Love Bees saga successfully did its job as a marketing tactic to build up even more hype for Halo 2. It actually drove many non-Halo players who actually were casually into the ARG subgenre into Halo 2. The I Love Bees ARG, created by 42 Entertainment, also received a couple awards, including the Wee Award, which brought more mainstream exposure to the idea of ARGs, as a lot of people did not know what they were, with even mainstream reporters talking about it during the whole thing. 42 Entertainment after this was still continuing to make ARGs, with them still being active in the industry today. One of the more notable ones is actually to make the massive ARG for the Dark Knight, which really deserves a video of its own. And in general, the whole genre of the ARG is still going strong, with it still being active today, like huge examples like Cloverfield. Now for all the discussion that was happening online surrounding the ARG. Sadly, a lot of the forums discussing the mystery of the ARG actually are mainly gone to cyberspace, but luckily you can access some of them thanks to the Wayback Machine. The original I Love Bees website itself is actually technically gone, as it was basically called ilovebees.com, but it was very revived by developers and fans who actually created a pretty much identical version of it called ilovebees.co that you can still access to this very day and explore it, even seeing that countdown timer for the Spider program reuniting with Melissa in 2557. Just kind of a really cool fact for anyone who's curious and wants to explore this whole thing. Now for whether the story of the I Love Bees ARG was actually canon to the Halo universe. Initially back in 2004 on the Bungie forums, Joe Stain was actually asked this question and said that the ARG was most likely not canon. This was mainly due to the fact that Bungie was too busy at the time making Halo 2 and did not really have any involvement into the ARG. But later in 2006, Frank O'Connor, who was working at Bungie at the time, said that I Love Bees was actually canon to the Halo universe. And this is most likely the case today, as in games like in Halo 3 ODST, there's actually subtle references to it, with even references in that god-awful live-action Halo TV show out of all things being there as well. Also, in the release of the Halo graphic novel, there were direct mentions of characters and events from the ARG, and even in Halo Infinite, when the Chief boots up, we see a spider being activated in the code, a crazy obscure reference for sure. Now for my personal hot take on whether the I Love Bees ARG is actually canon. And for the most part, my personal opinion is that I do mostly see this as canon, and it mostly fits into the lore, at least in my opinion. Now, there might be some discrepancies like the ending of the ARG. It is implied that the Covenant went to Earth for that Forerunner artifact as that being the reason, which is not really the case. In Halo War, the main reason for the Covenant attacking Earth was mainly just it was actually an accident. The Prophet of Regret found out Earth's location due to a massive Forerunner portal on the planet. And just for fun, in one of the ways I kind of fit the ARG into my own little headcanon for the Halo universe, I can also say that besides the portal, he also maybe wanted this artifact mentioned in the ARG as well as one of the reasons why he wanted to go to Earth. Now, for the whole reason this whole thing was actually called a mistake was the fact that the Prophet actually didn't know that Earth was actually the humans' homeworld and actually showed up the whole thing by mistake. With hints explained some of the small fleet that the Covenant had when they arrived on Earth, hints that they were only expecting to find artifacts and not actually the human homeworld. And during all of this, Regret would get defeated and retreat to one of the Halo rings. Meanwhile, the Prophet Truth actually knew the true purpose of Earth and withheld this information from his fellow brothers, and essentially wanted to make Regret look like an an idiot, and basically prop himself up and make his forces even stronger in his position in the Covenant. Still though, overall, with some loose thinking and a little bit of headcanon, I think that the ARG can fit snugly into the Halo canon, and overall I think it's a pretty cool idea. Now for actually what happened after the ARG's closure, Bungie, after seeing the success of the I Will Beast ARG for Halo 2, would actually do another ARG, being the Iris ARG, to market Halo 3, which was overall just a part of that legendary marketing campaign for that game. The I Will Beast saga is still being remembered today, as the people who actually played the ARG actually reunited to discuss it still, with many remembering the fond memories and relationships that they made during the ARG at that time period, and actually some people have actually made a few videos discussing their experiences, which I highly recommend to check out. And the whole I Will Beast saga also still gets mentioned a few times in the Halo 2 discussions, but like I said, not all the time, and usually doesn't get mentioned that often. But hopefully this video is able to shed more light on a topic that I personally didn't even know much about, but I learned to love the I Will Beast ARG from Halo 2, really making it a special moment in the franchise for sure, and hopefully y'all will enjoy it as well. And overall, that was the I Will Beast video. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. And the last thing I want to mention is, during a storm, a major hurricane that could blow you miles away, please don't go to a random payphone and try to activate an Axon. Just put down the damn phone and run!